Very good. Thank you for your patience. Okay, today we're going to start Parashat Mishpatim. That what I want to start showing you is how Parashat Mishpatim can be read as a unit together with Parashat Yitro. Last week on Parashat Yitro, we saw the amazing Ma'amad Har Sinai, where Am Israel is standing in front of Hashem and receiving the Ten Commandments. You remember we spoke about a covenant. There was a covenant. In that covenant, Hashem is offering us to accept him as our God, as our King, that we're going to obey his commandment. At the same time, he commits to have us as Am Segula, to protect us, which means that Am Israel is going to live and exist forever if we keep his mitzvot. So in that parasha, in Parashat Yitro, we saw how Kadosh Baruch Hu comes with a proposal, and what was our answer? How did we answer? Naaseh. Okay, we accept. And that Naaseh was based on the fact, okay, this God that is the one that took us out of Egypt and show us so many miracles, of course we're going to accept that he becomes our God, our King. Now, in our parasha, Parashat Mishpatim, we will actually start from the end today. Go to Perek 24 on page 440. Okay. What I want you to know is that what happens in Parashat Mishpatim, that we're going to see soon, is a very large list of mitzvot. To be exact, according to most mefarshim, you know how many mitzvot we have in our parasha? 53 mitzvot. If we have 613 mitzvot, 53 is a large number. It's very close to 10%, right? So all these mitzvot happen when Hashem gives them to Moshe, when Moshe goes up in Sinai at the same event of Kabbalat HaTorah, Kabbalah, the receiving of the 10 Hadiberot. So at the end of this list of mitzvot, that we're going to try to see a few samples today, look on chapter 24, Kaf Dalet, on page 441, says, to Moshe he said, go up to Hashem, you Aaron, Nadav and Avihu, and 70 of the elders of Israel, and you shall prostrate yourself from a distance, and Moshe alone shall approach Hashem, but they shall not approach, and the people shall not go up with him. So Hashem is telling Moshe again, come up with this group of 70 elders and Aaron and his two boys, Nadav and Avihu, but only you come close to me. So Moshe came and told the people all the words of Hashem and all the ordinances, and the entire people responded with one voice, and they said, all the words that Hashem has spoken, we will do. So let's see again where we are standing. Before Hashem give us the 10 Commandments, Hashem tells Moshe, I want you to propose this to Am Israel, that they will become my nation, I will protect them, as long as they keep my commandment that I become their God. So the people say then, yes, Naaseh, we take it, we accept. It's kind if you think about a couple. At the beginning, he proposes to her, will you marry me? And then she says, yes, I will marry you. But still the marriage didn't happen. Now, after that, Hashem gave us the 10 Commandments and all this list of mitzvot. And Moshe Rabbeinu comes back to the people of Israel and he gives them to the, you see, Moshe came and told the people all the words of Hashem and all the, what is the words of Hashem? The Diberot, the statements, the 10 Commandments, and all the ordinances, and the entire people responded, again, Naaseh. After they listen to the 10 Commandments and to all these mitzvot, they say, yes, we buy, we take. And then they go to sleep. You know, Bnei Israel, this was at night. The people of Israel go to sleep. In parentheses, I want to remind you, one minhag that we have in Shavuot is that we stay all the night awake. It's called Tikkun Shavuot. Tikkun is letaken, to fix. Because we say, how could they go to sleep that night after this amazing event of having listened the voice of Hashem, having they stood in front of Hashem? How could they just go to sleep like a normal, regular day? They should have just stayed and embraced this mitzvot that Hashem gave us and try to go and delve into them. So that's why we do the Tikkun Shavuot. But now what happens? Moshe wrote all the words of Hashem. He arose early in the morning, built an altar at the foot of the mountain, and 12 pillars for the 12 tribes of Israel. He sent the youths of the children of Israel, Chachamim say, is the Bechorot, because at that point the Bechorot were in charge of the spiritual life. And they brought korbanot, they brought up elevation offerings, and they slaughtered bulls to Hashem as peace offerings to Hashem. Moshe took half the blood, placed it in basins, and half the blood he threw upon the altar. He took the book of the covenant, which is Parashat Mishpatim, and read it in earshot of the people, and they said, and now listen to what they say. This is what we're used to always remember. What do they say? I am in Pasuk Zayin, Vaikach Sefer HaBerit, Vaikra Be'ozneam, Vayomeru, Kol asher diber Hashem, Naaseh v'nishma. Everything that Hashem has spoken, we will do and we will obey. So Moshe took the blood and threw it upon the people, and he said, behold the blood of the covenant that Hashem sealed with you concerning all these matters. So there is many more details that can be read and understood on this parasha, but what I wanted you to see mainly is how Parashat Mishpatim comes together in a package with the 10 Commandments. All these mitzvot, that's why some, in our community, the minhag is that we stand in Aseret HaDiberot, but as Rabbi Ben Chaim mentioned this Shabbat, many, Rambam, for example, Maimonides, he opposed to that habit. He said, no, we shouldn't stand, we shouldn't give the 10 Commandments a special, position, because they are, or for us, all the mitzvot of the Torah are as important. But here what happens is in the morning, Moshe writes down all of this, and he again comes to the people of Israel, and he reads to them, and then what do they say? All what Hashem spoke, Naaseh v'nishma. We will, what is Naaseh? We will keep. What is Nishma? We will listen. What do you mean? We will listen. So, few understandings of these two words. Some will say, Naaseh v'nishma is we're going to fulfill the mitzvot, even when we don't get what it is about. And after that, nishma, we will try to understand them. This is like an obedience that is unconditional. Yes, I accept the yoke of Hashem's Torah, and I'm going to fulfill his mitzvot, even a priori, even before I get what it says. This is one understanding. Or perhaps it's Naaseh. Yes, we will fulfill all what we heard, and we will also fulfill all what will we hear in the future. We are committing not to keep the Torah, only this mitzvot, but also all what is going to come on in the Torah. There is a beautiful interpretation as well that Naaseh v'nishma means that we commit forever to keep studying the Torah. Nishma is not only to listen to a voice, it involves understanding. So Am Israel here are committing to fulfilling the Torah, and at the same time, to what? To the study of the Torah. We're always going to keep trying and going deep and understanding the mitzvot and trying to get what Hashem wants from us. But it's very beautiful to see how unconditional was the commitment of Am Israel. Any questions on this? Sefer HaBrit is whatever was given until now. All this mitzvot until now. Then Moshe is going to go back and for 40 days and get all the mitzvot of the Torah. Okay? Now let's go to our parasha from the beginning. In order for us to really get the right feeling when we receive the Torah, I want to repeat what I always tell you. Try to imagine that you are Am Israel, a nation, very young nation, composed by slaves. You are slaves. You just came out of slavery. It's like how many months after we said, how many months after we left Egypt? 2 months after we left Egypt. In Nisan, we left Egypt. This is in, what day is this happening, Mother Sinai? When do we receive the Torah? Shavuot. Shavuot is the 6th of Sivan. This is when we are receiving the Torah. Okay? So we are servants. We are slaves. Okay? In our, one thing that we saw last week that was very beautiful about us, even that we were slaves, when Yitro comes to visit Moshe, what does he encounter? What was Moshe and the people doing? What were they doing? Moshe was judging them. Moshe is sitting, and there is a long, long line. Imagine Black Friday in the good times. A long, long line of people of Israel just waiting for Moshe to tell them, is this the right way to act? What should I do if this happens? Like we see that Am Israel was already then, even that they were slaves, they were thirsty to get the right way to act with justice. So here, even that we're slaves, Hashem is going to give us a set of rules. Rabbi Sachs has a beautiful, beautiful article where he says, Mother Sinai was such a high momentum for us. We were in such spiritual high level. We heard the voice of Hashem, where all these universal principles that connected us with the Almighty, but we cannot stay there. Parashat Mishpatim brings us down to the shetach, to the daily behavior with one person with his friend. What do you do? So they it's because you don't come there. It's because they were praying there. Okay. So what do you do with your animal? You will see mitzvot that you say, these people just left Egypt. They still don't own property, and the Torah is speaking with them about properties. They still don't own lands, and the Torah is speaking with them about land. They still don't have a business, and the Torah is speaking with them about how to act in your business with honesty. They still don't have houses, and the Torah is speaking with them about how to act with your neighbors and how liable are you if your animal affects your neighbor's property. They don't have property, and the Torah is speaking with them about what you do if you find, for example, your friend's wallet in the middle of the street. So these are mitzvot that have to do with the daily life in a society that still was not built. But Hashem is giving us the message. I care about the details, about the day-to-day behavior. You cannot stay only in Anochi Hashem Elokecha, in these principles, in these philosophical ideas. You need to come down and translate this in your behavior. Like Chachamim in the Talmud ask themselves, what does it mean to be a Hasid, to be a very pious person? And they always, they bring few ideas, but they always connect the behavior, Ben Adam Lamakom, the way you act with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, with the way you act with your friends. You cannot be a tzaddik and a Hasid only because you eat the highest level of kashrut and you are the whole day praying and you are all the day studying Torah. That's not enough. To be a Hasid, to be a tzaddik, it has to be also translated and it has to be noted in your personal behavior. So today I want to dedicate the shiur, Leilui Nishmat, my father, Rabbi Umori, Rabbi David Ben Masuda. Tomorrow is his askara, 4 years since his departure. When I was studying the parasha, I couldn't avoid from seeing how much my father represented this integrity. Really, really, when for him, everything has to be done in the highest level. Like if it was about Kiyum Mitzvot, like I remember that my mom telling me, let's say they were invited to a bar mitzvah. A family from Panama, they come to Israel and they needed a rabbi in their bar mitzvah, and they were people that they knew. And my parents were very strict in their kashrut. They were very, very strict. Like they wouldn't eat a salad anywhere. It doesn't matter what ashgacha it had, because my mom was so careful with everything. But they would not come and tell the people, oh no, sorry, we don't eat your food. They would come and they would act as they were eating. And they sat in the table with everybody, and they did not make anybody feel uncomfortable. And I was there, and then we go to the room, we have our own food. I brought my eggs, I brought my coffee, I brought my this. But they were so sensitive, first, in keeping the Torah in the highest level, but also not to hurt other people's feelings in the highest level. And this is real Hasidut. In everything, like the way he connected with the Torah. When last week parasha, when my dad used to read the 10 Commandments, I am telling you, not because it was my dad, you were in the Bet HaKnesset, you would feel like the walls were trembling, because he felt that he was there. And he would read it and his voice would tremble, like he felt, how am I reading these words that were the words of Hashem? And then if we read about Yosef and his brothers, I always tell you this, he used to cry like a child, because because sensitive people get very much connected with what they read, his love for Shabbat. Like I remember walking with him to Bet Knesset, and he sees this young man playing soccer, and he would call them, come. Why don't you come with me to the Bet Knesset? Like, he was so innocent. Like, he would say things so much from his heart that people would not get offended. And the way he engaged in conversations with every person, for him, the rich and the poor and the Hasid and the Ethiopian and the religious and the non-religious, all of them were really people that he loved with all his heart. So I think that this parasha and the whole Torah represent who really he tried to be and how he lived his life. Yehi Zichro Baruch. So let's go inside. What is the first mitzvah that our parasha is bringing? Eved Ivri. What is Eved Ivri? A Jewish slave. Okay, so my question to you is, hello, we just came out of slavery. We were slaves in Egypt. We didn't have fun there. It wasn't good. How much Hashem had to do and to create and to transform nature in order to take us out of slavery. How is the Torah now bringing me situations of slavery? What do you think? It's very different. We spoke about this many times, so I'm not going to stay very long on the slavery issue. What is this slavery about? Do you know what slavery the Torah is speaking here? First of all, the Torah speaks about there is a limit of time, 6 years, right? If you buy a Jewish bondsman, he shall work for 6 years. In the 7th, he shall go free for no charge. If he shall arrive by himself, he shall live by himself. If he is the husband of a woman, his wife shall live with him. If his master give him a woman and she bears him sons of daughters, the wife of her and her children shall belong to her master, and he shall go out by himself. But if the bondsman shall say, I love my master, my wife, and my children, I shall not go free, then his master shall bring him to the court and shall bring him to the door or the doorpost, and his master shall bore through his ear with the awl, and he shall serve him forever. So first of all, what is the time of a Eved Ivri? How much shall 6 years? There is a limit. There is a limit. What does it remind us, the 6 years? Shemitah, what else? Shabbat, everything that is about work and rest. We have the 6th and the 7th. 6 days we work, 7 days Shabbat, we rest. Or 6 years we work the land, and 7th day the land rests. Or 6 years the slave, and 7th year he goes free. At the end it says, and if he doesn't want to go free, the Torah is giving us a direction. They have to take this slave next to the mezuzah and pierce his ear, saying, this ear that heard that you are my slaves, Hashem, you are choosing to become the slave of a man. So they pierce his ear, and then he stays slave forever. Now, this forever is not exactly forever, is until Shnat Ayovel, until the year that is the 50th. If I say things fast and there is questions, stop me. Okay, but I went ahead. and I ask a question at the beginning. What type of slavery we are talking? What do you think about this?
If a man steals, then he doesn't have money to pay back.
Okay, so this is called indentured slavery. Is a man or a woman that needed the money, and we're going to see 2 or 3 situations, and then they put themselves as a slave of somebody, and that money, instead of being paid to this person, is going to go to certain costs. So for example, you brought the example of a man that stole. Let's say, sorry to say it about myself, but doesn't matter. Imagine I went to a bank and I robbed $10,000, or from a specific person's account. I was able to trick that, and I took $10,000 from an account. What is the halacha? To pay double. Why do I have to pay double? I have to return his money. And also the Torah is not only about punishments. The Torah is about education. How will I understand that this is wrong? I need to feel how it feels when $10,000 go out of my belongings, of my account, right? So if I pay double, 10,000 is what I took, $10,000 was mine. I have to give this to the Betin. So imagine you stole, but you already spent everything. You went to the casino, spent everything in one night. How are you going to make this money? You don't have the money. So the Bedin has the right, in this case, to take this person and to sell it in slavery for him to pay his debt. That's how it's done. Now, the Bedin will usually choose a very good family, and because the idea is educational, as opposed to whenever a thief goes to jail, that there you learn how to steal better and how not to be caught again. A family would be a good environment where he learned good values. And there are many details in the Talmud that we don't see them here, that the way they have to treat this man. Chachamim say in the Talmud, kana eved, kana adon leatzmo. The person that bought a slave buys for himself a master. Because let's say you eat steak, you cannot give him rice, you have to give him steak. You have a celebration at home and everybody's sitting and eating, you cannot tell him you go and continue, you have to make him sit and celebrate with you. You have only one pillow, you have a lot of guests, and all the pillows went around the guests, and you stayed only with one pillow, and your slave doesn't have a pillow and you don't have a pillow, you have to give it to your slave. So we're speaking about Eved Ivri. It's one of your Jewish brothers or sisters that come to work for you. Another situation could be, not that you are sold, but you yourself, you felt so low. You became so poor. You don't have what to eat. You cannot find a job. So this was a way to find a job. Like you say, you go to the Bedin, please find me a family. At least I'm not going to die. They will feed me. So that was also a situation. Or sometimes it was the girl, my daughter, God forbid, a family, let's say they had, 10 children. They don't have how to feed them. Sometimes they would take the one girl, the one that is already capable of working, and find a good family for that girl to work there. It was like selling her, and they would get money in a good way. They could feed the family, and this girl had to be taken very good care. Sometimes it was for marriage. So the master is going to marry this girl. Very interesting how the Torah continues and speaks about what if it's a girl. Here, Pasuk 7, if a man will sell his daughter as a bondswoman, she shall not live like the leave-taking of the slaves. She is displeasing in the eyes of her master, who should have designated her for himself. He shall assist in her redemption. He shall not have the power to sell her to a strange man, for he had betrayed her. Usually this type of arrangement of taking a young girl was for marriage. And he had, the person that takes a girl for marriage had to commit to treat her with all the rights of a married woman. And if he doesn't like her, he cannot say, oh no, she's not for me, let me sell her to my friend. No, he couldn't. You don't want her, you let her free. And the father doesn't have to give you back the money. If he had designated her for his son, he shall deal with her according to the rights of the young women. the same thing. What are the and now this is so interesting. If he shall take another in addition to her, he shall not diminish her food, her clothing, or her marital relationship. The Torah here, when the Torah speaks about the servant woman, is giving us information that we take for every single marriage. This is the ketubah. This is who is the person that married last year? You. I don't know if you knew what is your ketubah about. Do you know? Did you study about the ketubah? Now pay attention, because you have to demand this. Like in the ketubah, the husband signs for his obligations towards his wife. And what are the three obligations? She'era, kesuta, ve'onata. What does it mean? It means food, clothing, and marital relationship. Even that always it seems that is the man that is demanding for marital relationship is an obligation of the husband to his wife. Like imagine a man that would want to punish his wife and let's say disregard her, not give her any attention, go on trips, forget about. This is very wrong for his part, and the Bedin can use their power and give the consequences. I don't want to speak about what, but it's his obligation to give her this attention. And the Talmud is full with the situations, how often, it depends on his occupation. If he's a sailor and he has to travel, it's different than if he's a person that is at home and every day is home. So this is one of the things. And then a home and clothing, like imagine a woman would say, I'm sorry, I don't feel like going to work. I prefer staying home. He has the obligation to feed her according to the Torah, right? Now, what the situation that is brought here is very interesting. From here also our rabbis learn, you know, that polygamy was accepted in the Torah, not as an ideal situation. The same way that slavery, even this, what is described here, is not an ideal situation, but the Torah is very well, Hashem very well, is very well in tune with the ability of people to keep certain mitzvot. Like some things have a process, like polygamy. It was allowed because it was very common in that time, but the ideal situation is for polygamy not to exist. And the Torah teaches us and shows us how bad it went for Yaakov Avinu with Rachel and Leah. It wasn't very easy. But here, an interesting fact, it says, and if he takes another woman, he cannot stop from giving this girl that he took, that he purchased, he cannot stop from bringing her her rights that he signed for them in the Ketubah. From here, Chachamim say, a man cannot marry a second woman unless he can really afford that. You cannot imagine you are married to a woman and, you know, this was a situation in, especially in Arab countries, you have a woman, she's old and she's with the children and the house, and you want a young girl for yourself and you want to marry her, you need to check very well that you're going to be able to, that your wife that lives with you at home is not going to feel any deprivation, that you're still going to take very good care of her. And not because now you prefer this. You know, they say that in the times of the Torah, polygamy was allowed, right? That today, polygamy is forbidden, but I don't want to continue the sentence, right? But anyways, interesting to see how the Torah is so sensitive to the rights of this person that is vulnerable, that had fell low and had come to need this type of service. Okay? Yes.
How you treated Jewish slave? Do you have to keep any of them laws for Gentiles, like the worker, like the housekeeper?
What do you mean with the Jews?
No, with the, like, let's say your housekeeper, like, let's say if you're having steak, you have to give her to work.
Oh, no. First of all, she's not your slave. She can leave whenever she wants. You cannot hold her for 6 years. She's not your slave.
No, I know, but
no, sensitivity, not to oppress, to pay on time. Definitely is a worker. Is a worker that you are you know, when you have a live-in, part of your payment is that you're offering a place to sleep. But that person can wake up in the morning and say, I don't like this room, bye. She can do that. She's not your slave. It's a very different position. But of course, you have so many things involved here. You have Chilul Hashem. Imagine all the families eating. And by the way, I have one thing that I know Spanish. So whenever some of the girls that have worked in my house, they share with me things, conversations. And they tell me how in some places they don't get food. That's terrible. That's, minimal sensitivity to a human being. With an animal, we have a mitzvah. If you have an animal, if you own animals or a pet, before you eat, you have to feed the animal, because they cannot come and take it from your pantry. So if you have a person working for you, you're going to eat steak and the whole house is smelling like steak, and you're going to give her, I don't know, bread. Either you leave the steak for the night when she's not around, if you don't want to share with her. I don't know why I brought the example of the steak today.
No, because
Okay, but you don't have to give her the pillow, like things like that, but dignity and treating her well, or even telling her you can bring your own if you want, And if not, there is Chilul Hashem. They speak bad about the Jews. In general, the way we treat the Gentiles is very important. First of all, we have mitzvot in the Torah. Ve'ahavta lereacha kamocha. Every human being is not the avtal, the Jew kamocha. Reacha, every person. And also, because it was created B'Tselem Elokim, but also Chilul Hashem. They will speak bad about the Jewish people. Okay, so as I said, in this parasha, we have 53 mitzvot in every single area. So I wrote to myself few of the mitzvot just to take samples, and let's try to go and see how the Torah is so amazingly just and sensitive to the other person. Sorry. Okay, open on Shemot 21:22. 21:22, Kaf Aleph 22 is on page 423. Give me 1 second. Okay, if a man shall fight and they collide with a pregnant woman and she miscarries, but there will be no fatality, she shall surely be punished as the husband of the woman. He shall surely be punished as the husband of the woman shall cause to be assessed against him, and he shall pay it by order of judges. What is important to know in the Torah, I think I made a mistake. That's important also, but go before that a little bit. Go to I wanted to show you how is Yud Bet is 12, not 22. It says like this. Yes, it's the same chapter on the page 421, Pasuk 12. Yes, I didn't write. It's 12. No, actually, it's 12. I have it here. 21:12. It says like this: Makeh ish vamet mot yumat. One who strikes a man so that he dies shall surely be put to death. And I continue the next pasuk. But for one who had no lain in ambush and God had caused it to come to his hand, I shall provide you a place to which he shall flee. So these two psukim are speaking about the difference between murder and manslaughter, which means it's totally different according to the Torah. If you had the intention to kill, to murder, than if it happened by accident. So I know today is very normal and very accepted in our laws, but that wasn't, in those times, that wasn't so clear. That's why the Torah, as we have seen in previous parashiot, says here, I shall provide you a place to which he shall flee. We have Arem Miklat. These cities, when Hashem tells Moshe to divide the land in between all the tribes, he tells him to also assign 6 cities that are going to be called Ir Mikla, cities of refuge. For whom? For the person that by mistake killed another Jew. Now, what would happen in those times? That the family would want to avenge his death. They would come to after him. Hashem says, come here, you are going to be protected because you did not have the intention. Because it's a divine law, Hashem can kind of say this because he knows the real intention. He's the only one that knows how much this was an accident and how much it was. But it's important to see the differentiation. Go to Pasuk 23 actually. When we speak, if there shall be a fatality, then you shall award a life for a life. I go to 24. Ayn tachan ayn, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, a hand for a hand, a foot for a foot, a burn for a burn, a wound for a wound, a bruise for a bruise. We're speaking about bodily injury. Okay, we are fighting. God forbid, I injure the other person. I don't know. I cause his hand. I cause his hands not to be anymore working, or he, because of me, lost an eye. I drove without responsibility, and I had an accident, and that person got injured on his spine, and he cannot stand on his feet anymore. So these are situations that the Torah is telling us, ayn tachat ayn, teeth. So the literal understanding is, okay, you wounded his eye, now you need to pay with your eye. His eye, you have to, is this what we do? Is this what it means? This is one of the amazing examples of how much we need the Torah shebe'al peh. We need the oral interpretation to understand what the Torah is telling us. The Torah is not saying, okay, if you hurt his eye, you need to stand there and we're going to hurt your eye. No, what the Torah is saying, the compensation to the person that was hurt has to be according to how what he lost affected his productivity. For example, imagine you were, I don't know, a surgeon. To be a surgeon, you need to be very precise. The fine motor is very important, you know, especially if today with robotics, and imagine a little tiny finger was hurt. In this case, the compensation needs to consider that you cannot work anymore as a surgeon, and perhaps now you are going to be only sitting doing some, I don't know, work in the office. How did it affect your salary? How did it affect your productivity? We usually take into consideration the loss of income, medical costs, emotional suffering and embarrassment, impaired capacity to make a living. Imagine he was a lawyer, now he's cleaning shoes. So how all of this affects you? This is what Torah is telling us. When the Torah says, ayn tachat ayn, is because the Torah wants us to consider, okay, how did losing an eye affected this person's productivity and living in the future? Okay, now go to Pasuk 28, another example. Pasuk 28 on the same page. Yes, וכיגח שור את איש או את אישה ומת, הכל יסכל השור ולא יאכל את בשרו, ועל השור נקי, ואם השור ניגח הוא מתמול שלשום והוא אב בבעליו ולא ישמענו, ואם איש את אישה השור יסכל וגם בעליו יומת. It's very interesting. If an ox shall gore a man or woman and he shall die means the person, right? The ox shall surely be stoned. Its flesh may not be eaten, and the owner of the ox shall be innocent. But if it was an ox that gores habitually from yesterday and the day before yesterday, and its owners had been warned but did not guard it, and it killed a man or woman, the ox shall be stoned, and even its owner shall die. That's a very, very tough and harsh punishment. So what is this pasuk saying? We are responsible for the damage that we cause others. So if I have an animal, and we don't have oxes today, what do we have? What people have sometimes? Dogs. I remember one year I brought to the classroom, I went online, didn't do it this time, and I looked for damage, even loss of life caused by dogs, by pets. And there is a lot. You can go and find. There's a lot. So it says here, if it's something that happened out of the blue, that your animal acted in a crazy way. It was a normal animal that is living with you for a while. You are not responsible. Still, the animal needs to be taken out. But if this is an animal, your dog already did it. You already attacked a person and he attacked again. And you were warned to be careful to put him a muzzle and to not to leave it without a leash. And you didn't do that. And your animal is going to cause damage or kill somebody. Then of course that the owner is responsible. Makes sense, right? Okay, another mitzvah. So we're speaking about damage caused to others. The first one is by an animal. Another example is with a pit. Where is this? Look on Pasuk 33. If a man shall uncover a pit, or if a man shall dig a pit and not cover it, and an ox or a donkey fall into it, the owner of the pit shall make restitution. He shall return money to its owner, and the carcass shall be his. So it's doing something in your property or outside your property that is going to cause damage to others. So this example is a pit. You know, today when they do some work, there are many laws. The world has advanced a lot. There are many laws that you need to really put a fence around it and big signs. You cannot do things in Reshut Rabim, in where people are walking, that can cause their cost them an accident or whatever. So the Torah is very, so again, try to think you are a slave that just came out of Egypt. And the Torah is speaking with you about making a pit in a property that somebody can get I would say hurt, yes. The third example that the Torah brings here is doing damage with fire. Go on Pasuk 5 on page 427. If a fire shall go forth and find thorns, and a stack of grain or a standing crop or a field is consumed, the one who kindled the fire shall make restitution. It happens a lot. You know where it happens a lot with fire? In Israel. How does it happen? Yes, but sometimes it's intentional. The Palestinians, you know, they do that. They make a fire, and they know that the wind is going to continue, and the fire will go to the fields and burn the crops of the Jewish farmers. But in few months ago, caused intentionally. But imagine it's unintentional. He's speaking here about not intention, but what? What is the word? Negligence. Speaking about negligence, imagine you went to a park, to a national park, and there is a possibility to have a barbecue there. And you have your barbecue, and you are not careful to extinguish the fire. And then a wind comes and creates a fire. You are responsible, because the Torah is demanding from us not only not to do intentionally bad things, but to be responsible and to avoid from others being hurt by our actions. Okay? Let's find another mitzvah. 22:1. 22:1. We're speaking about a thief, right? If a thief is discovered while tunneling in and is struck and dies, there is no blood guilt on his account. What does it mean? Imagine a thief is making a tunnel to get to your home, and you find him, and you have an arm, and you fire against him. The Torah does not find you responsible, because the Torah says if somebody is willing to come to your home to steal for you, that person is willing to kill you as well. Is ready to kill. So this is called self-defense. I don't know how today it's going to be considered with all the, even in Israel, you know, Hayalim, the soldiers, they need to be so careful. If they see a terrorist that is showing an intent to attack, you have to be so careful before you use your gun, because if they don't find to the point of the letter that you were right, your life is going to be messed. They will not see it as self-defense. Let's see if you can guess. Kaf Bet 22, 6 to 14. What is the Torah speaking here? 6 to 14. Borrow, that's one of them. I'm going to read and you still have to give me the answer. If a man shall give money or vessels to his fellow to safeguard, and it is stolen from the house of the man, if the thief is found, he shall pay double. If the thief is not found, then the householder shall approach the court that he had not laid his hand upon his fellow's property. For every item of liability, whether an ox, a donkey, or sheep, a garment, regarding any lost item about which he says, this is it, to the court shall come both their claims. Whomever the court finds guilty shall pay double to his fellow. And then it continues, if a man shall give his fellow a donkey or an ox or a sheep or any animal to safeguard, and it died or was broken or looted without any eyewitnesses, an oath of Hashem shall be between them both, that he did not lay his hand upon the property of his fellow. The owner shall accept it, and he shall not pay. If it shall be stolen from him he shall pay to his owner. If it shall be torn to death, he shall produce a witness. For a torn animal he does not pay. And it continues, if a man shall borrow from his fellow, and it shall become broken or shall die, provided its owner is not with him, he shall surely make restitution. If its owner is with him, he shall not make restitution. If he was a renter, it came in return for his rental. So it speaks here about, let's say, you have an object and you give it to me. For different reasons, you can give it to me. One can be, you are going away and you are asking from me, can you please take care of my jewelry? Or can you please, you're a neighbor, take a look at my home, come every day and check that nothing is stolen or whatever. So what happens if something breaks? Let's say you gave me your camera and it broke, or it's stolen. So it depends very much what is the status of the agreement that we had. If I'm just taking care of it, I agree to take care of your property. So what the Torah demands from me is to go to the Bedin and say, yes, I agree to take care of it. I'm not free of negligence. I still need to take care of it. So I have to come to the Bedin and say, I did not, when you neglect, I did not neglect protecting the object. Imagine I'm taking care of your home and I left the door open. I didn't lock it. I didn't close the lock. It's my responsibility, even that I'm not being paid. Okay. Now the second and third case that the Torah brings is if I am borrowing from you an object, or if I am being paid for the service. Imagine I belong to a security company and you are paying to me and something happens to your item, then for sure I have to pay back because I was paid, I had some benefit. And if I am borrowing from you, that's the highest level that I'm responsible, because I'm not even paying, but I'm only benefiting from your property, so I need to pay back. Is that clear? So again, look at what details the Torah is coming after giving us the 10 commandments. I'm going to go to Shemot 22, 20 to 23. This we do every year, and it's very, very, very important. 22, Pasuk 20 to 23, and it continues, which is in page 431 in English, yes? Here, sensitivity to the helpless and abandoned. You shall not count or oppress a stranger, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt. So now, usually, and a lot of psychology has said and written about this, usually we find a trend. When people are oppressed, when people are abused, what happens to them? They become abusers. A lot. It happens very often. You find a bully in the school, or you see your son that comes home and is hitting his brother, very often you find is because he was bullied at school. Like it's a natural consequence. They hurt me, they oppress me, they treat me bad. I have to take this out. I'm going to do it to others. Hashem is teaching us, no, 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 no. This is not how I want you to act. You were oppressed in Egypt. You were treated very bad. You suffered. I don't want you, chas v'chalila, for you to take that as your modus operandi, as the way you're going to treat others. That's why the mitzvah that repeats itself the most in the Torah is do not oppress the stranger. The stranger refers in Israel to the person, let's say, an immigrant, a legal immigrant that came to live with us. But he's a stranger, he looks different, he's not like us, he doesn't belong to our community, he speaks different, has an accent, it's different, different smells, whatever it is. The fact that he's different than you does not allow you to treat him bad. And the Torah warns us, you shall not taunt or oppress strangers, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt. Hashem is telling us, I want you to do the opposite. Instead of you becoming oppressors, abusers, I want you to take that experience that you felt on your own flesh, and because you felt how bad it feels, use it as an empathy factor to understand the other and not to do it with others, and be sensitive on treating them well. Then the psukim continue to speak about other people in our society that usually are vulnerable. And the Torah, again, is warning us not to oppress them. You shall not cause pain to any widow or orphan. Be very careful with the widow, with the woman that lost her husband, and with the orphan, the child that lost his parents. And they are very vulnerable. Usually in society, especially in those times, a woman was not able to take care of herself. She couldn't work, she couldn't take care of her parnasa. So you have to be very careful not to oppress her. And what is really give you goosebumps to see how the Torah continues. Look what Hashem is telling us. If you dare to cause him pain, for if he shall cry out to me, I shall surely hear his outcry. My wrath shall blaze, and I shall kill you by the sword, and your wives will be widows, and your children orphans. Hashem is telling us, you know why sometimes people oppress the vulnerable? Why sometimes an orphan or a widow are oppressed? Why? Why? Because they don't have a figure that is standing next to them to defend it. Think about a child in the park, in the school, at shul, in kanisa, and every child here, when they're playing, if somebody bothers the other, can run to her dad and tell him, Dad, he's hitting me, and then the dad will come. Who is that? So the others are going to be afraid, but the orphan doesn't have his dad to come to protect him. Or the woman that is alone, who is going to defend her honor? She's like, who cares? So Hashem is saying, don't think that they don't have anyone to protect them. I am going to protect them. I'm going to be there to protect them. I care. I'm going to listen, because usually what happens to these vulnerable people, dim'ata metsuya, their tears come out very easily. And that's why they say it's so important to be careful not to make almanot and yetumim to cry, not to cause them any pain, and we have a problem here, because usually they are extra sensitive. They things that perhaps for another person are not so, hurting, for a person that is in this vulnerable situation is much more painful, and they are crying. And if they cry and I cause their tears and Hashem listens to these tears, that's very, very problematic. So that's why we need to be extremely cautious. And I don't know, usually we have more time. I'm about to finish my class, but usually we speak about situations in our daily lives. It doesn't have to be by oppressing or by hurting. It has, sometimes it's where you put them in your party to sit. Sometimes it's when you see them around, how sensitive are you to come, to approach, to say hi, etc., etc. This is to develop more. And I'm going to give you one more mitzvah. And with this, we're going to finish, even that there is so much more. For example, 23:6, sorry, I'm going to bring you two. 23:6, do not pervert the judgment of the destitute person in his grievance. Distance yourself from a false word. So this is speaking for the justice, for the judges. And it says, do not pervert the judgment of the destitute person in his grievance. Whenever there is a poor person, you have to be careful to judge righteously. Now, if this person is poor, how can I just in a not just way? Sometimes it's by having extra rahmanut on him and say, oh no, he's poor. Let me, there is a trial who has to give to whom $100. And it's a wealthy person against a poor person. I am tempted to say the poor one is right, give it to him. But the Torah is telling us, no, I want you to act with justice. And it's such an important, I'm going to finish here. It's such an important mitzvah because it teaches us that justice or keeping the Torah and mitzvah doesn't go by feelings, but whatever is right. The fact that you have empathy doesn't say that they can steal. You can see a person that suffered a lot in their life and have a traumatic life and childhood. It doesn't mean that they are allowed to steal or to break property or to kill other people. And I invite you really to pay attention during Shabbat. We perhaps saw, 10 mitzvot. You have still 43 more mitzvot to go. Shabbat shalom, enjoy, and thank you for listening. Thank you.